Hello and welcome to the Brodie Blueprint, the podcast designed to help college students and young professionals navigate their career paths. Each episode we sit down with industry experts from finance, business, sports, education and more to uncover their journeys, daily experiences and lessons they've learned along the way. Whether you're exploring career options, looking for networking advice, or just curious about different industries, this is the place for you. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Hello everybody, welcome back to episode 5 of the Brodie Blueprint. Today I'm joined by entrepreneur, writer and inspirational speaker, the great Derek Stewart. Derek, thank you so much for coming on today.
It's a pleasure, Jack, and thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. Obviously, we know each other outside of this, Derek, so we've spoken before. I'm very excited to get into your story a little bit more and get some advice from you today.
Great. Well, I hope to learn a few things along the way as well.
Oh, fingers crossed. So tell me where it all began. Obviously, I know you went to Eastwood High School back when you were a young lad. Tell me how you got started in business, what interested you when you were younger, and just how you started this great career.
Yeah, well, when I was young, the only thing that mattered to me was sport. School wasn't high on my agenda. And when I left school, I went straight into a job working in a hotel as a porter. And my best friend, he was going on to college to learn how to be a hotel manager. I thought I would work my way up. That lasted 3 days. There was a shift clash with a tennis match that was very important. So I went to see my manager and asked if we could have a split shift so that I could work, but I could also play the match. He gave me some really good advice. It's an awful long time ago, and I still remember his words. Which were, "Sonny, when you grow up, there are certain decisions you have to make in life." So that was the end of my hotel career there and then.
Short-lived, I suppose. Short-lived.
Very short, very short. And I was lucky that I fell into financial services and found something that I loved. And that was really the start of everything. There was no planning. It was just one of these things that happens.
Great, no, that's interesting. So obviously, you've been a partner in a lot of positions, a managing partner, business owner, obviously more recently, even a regional director at times. How did you get started in financial services? Was there a certain figure that got you involved, or what was that entry like to that industry?
No, it was purely that I was in retail at the time selling tennis rackets, and I wanted a job that had a future. And I saw an advert and I went for the job interview and was lucky to get it. And that was the start of a 45-year term in financial services. When I got the job, Jack, it's one of these things, as I say, school only became interesting when I chose my own subjects. But by that time, it was probably too late. But when I went into financial services, I really loved it. And because I loved it, I just worked hard at it. And I was fortunate to have some good people around me. And, one of my key points that I make to people is, if you can see excellence around you, copy it, but put your own stamp on it. And that's what I did.
Good. So one thing we've touched on in previous episodes is having like a mentorship figure. It's something that I've been lucky enough to experience this last year or so. You talk about surrounding yourself with good people. How important is this in any walk of life, no matter what you're doing? How important is it to surround yourself?
It's absolutely essential. I had a sort of career in tennis on the side. I used to be a professional tennis coach, and the gentleman that believed in me and got me through that. I was only the 5th registered professional tennis coach in Scotland, and I was 26, I think, at the time. But I only got there because somebody believed in me and showed me the way and was a fantastic example, a guy called Bill Moss. Absolutely amazing. So that I had a mentor in tennis. And when I went to work in financial services and got what I considered to be the job that launched my career, but I started as a T-boy. There was an individual there that took me under his wing, and he's still a friend to this day. So sometimes you don't go looking for a mentor. Sometimes they just appear, and I've had that in numerous occasions over the year.
Did you ever get to see that from the other perspective? Obviously, you had a long career in financial services. Did you ever get the opportunity to mentor someone or watch somebody's growth beneath you? And what was that like?
Absolutely, it was fantastic. So everybody that ever worked for me, and I set my own business up when I was 36, but anybody that ever worked for me, or even people that worked with me before that, I always tried to develop them, to for them to get the best of their skills, and that paid me back 100-fold. I wasn't looking for
Yeah.
payback, but actually, if you can improve your team, and people would say to me, "Oh, if you train somebody like that, they'll go and leave you." And I said, well, I'd rather that than not train somebody and they stay.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Very true.
I wanted the very, very best of the people that were with me. So, yeah, I think having a mentor or mentors over your
Hmm.
career is important.
Absolutely. No, it's definitely been something that's been consistent with who we spoke to. So it's very interesting. I want to talk, obviously, sport. You've said it's a huge part of your life. In the time that I've known you as ultra runner more than financier. So I would love to touch on that. I want to talk more about life as a professional tennis coach. How did you get started with that? And I'll just any information about your sports journey, ultra runner, third dan, black belt. I mean, there is a lot of stuff in there. So give us just the highlights and a summary of that side of Derek Stewart.
I think the thing that they all have in common is that
Hmm.
I like to set the bar high.
Hmm.
And I didn't really set it high at school. So tennis
Okay.
was my first love, and I just lived and breathed it. In my final year at school, I was more on the tennis court than I was at school, and that showed in my results. But again, somebody spotted me not as a player, but as a coach, and put me
Yep.
through the various coaching awards. So that was a massive achievement that I was very proud of, and still am, although I don't play anymore.
Yep.
But I got fed up with the administration side of tennis because I used to
Mhm.
serve on some committees. And
Okay.
I took up karate, which I'd always wanted to do. So when I set my own business up at the age of 36, I started karate. And I thought,
Okay.
I'm going to make this part of my life. So it's
Hmm.
not as though I'm adding something in, it's part of my life. And I think that's an
Yep.
important point. So I did karate, and I had a very good sensei who was a mentor to me. And after 11 years, I'd got to third dan black belt, which was good. I would still run away if anybody wanted a fight. That's the first thing you should do, by the way.
Of course.
It's the first thing you should do if you want to stay alive. And from there, I got involved in a charity boxing event, which then led me on to triathlon, which then led me on to Ironman. Now,
Brilliant.
Ironman, for those of you that don't know, is it's a 2.4 mile swim. It's 100. Well, I'm going to now mix it up. It's a 180-kilometer cycle, and then
Mhm.
it's a marathon. And I really, really loved that. But once I did my first Ironman, I've got this phrase that I use that we're all capable
Mhm.
of so much more.
Wow.
So I
Okay.
then went and entered the Marathon des Sables, which is meant to be the
Mhm.
toughest foot race in the world. It's not, but
Yep.
it is tough.
Okay.
It's 5.5 marathons across the Sahara Desert in 6 days carrying your
Gosh.
own gear. And since then, I've done a number of events. I've done the Grand Canyon. I've done the 205-mile Tahoe 200, it's called, around Lake Tahoe. And I just
Wow.
love, love, love it. It's about setting targets. It's about pushing yourself. It's about getting the best out of yourself. It's about challenging yourself and challenging
Hmm.
your mind, because it's usually your mind that holds you back.
Absolutely. No, I think some of the achievements you've got in running in ultra marathons are frankly extremely inspiring. Would I be right in saying that, especially the marathon, this I don't know how to the Sables, the
The
Sables,
Sable.
whatever you call it, the Sables, sorry. This is an often fatal race for some people, isn't it? There's people that
No,
die at
no,
this
no,
race
no.
occasionally.
I only know of one death in the Marathon des
Okay.
Sables, and that's one too many.
Yeah, of
I know a
course.
lot of people who have fallen very ill,
Okay.
because I mean the temperature's 52 degrees on what they call a long day when you do a double marathon. It's
Hmm.
52 degrees. You get 9 liters of water. So you've got to be
Wow.
very disciplined. Well, 9 liters a day. You've got to be very
Hmm.
disciplined about how you eat, how you drink, how you look after yourself. But you see, all these lessons in sport,
Yeah.
I have converted into business. And
Okay.
I've taken exactly the same approach. Exactly the same approach.
I think that's something that probably a lot of people wouldn't think. There's a lot of similarity in your preparation for an ultra marathon than there is with your business as well. When you're staring an Ironman or an ultra marathon in the face, say it's coming up in a couple of months, what's the preparation for that like, both physically and mentally?
Well, that's a really good question, because physically is the easy bit. In
Okay.
Ironman, the last one I did, I think it was about 16 hours training a week. And that would be in the pool, on the bike, out running, and in the gym. Your nutrition was critical, your rest was critical, and at the same time, you had to work. So it required an awful lot
Wow.
of organization. But just to make it clear about I'm not at the front of these races. I'm not at the back. I'm in the middle. I'm in the middle pack,
Yeah.
and I'm not competing with anyone other than myself. And I
Okay.
am not a top athlete at all in any shape, form whatsoever. In fact, that's my point. I'm just an
Mhm.
ordinary person, but I've got
Yeah.
some high bars that I've set that I want to achieve.
Is that something you've learned over time, perhaps when you were younger? Was the idea there that you wanted to win these races, you wanted to beat everyone that you were against, and now, as you've maybe got a little bit older, you realise that the mental battle and the battle with yourself is far more important? Is that something that's
Well,
changed?
even when I was younger, Jack, and even when I was playing tennis, I played at
Yeah.
a good level, but not I wasn't good enough. So I never actually imagined, because it wouldn't have been possible to have won the tournaments, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. But that's what
Yeah.
then led me to coaching, and then I was
Mhm.
able to help, and so much of it's about mental attitude. So much of it's about mindset. And if I
Mhm.
could get my players who were talented to have the
Yeah.
right mindset, then they would win.
In your coaching roles and your mentorship roles, what difficulties have you had with people beneath you or your players beneath you?
Well, I wouldn't refer to them as beneath me, but I know what you mean.
Well, sorry, I suppose that could be insulting, but sorry,
Yeah,
you know
no,
what I
I,
mean, of
I, I
course.
understand. Um, the, the greatest difficulty was getting them to understand that they could do it and believe it. Now, I'm going to, if I could, I share a business model with you that actually
Absolutely,
links to
please,
tennis, right?
please.
So I want you to picture four boxes, two axis,
Okay,
two
yeah,
axis, four
I'm with you.
boxes. Um, my tennis players would come to me and they would say, "Oh, I'm worried about my next match." Now, what I would normally do is go and watch the opponent that they were playing,
Hmm.
and I would watch their face through a zoom lens,
Okay.
because I could tell their weaknesses based on their facial expressions without
Hmm.
watching the stroke.
Hmm.
Because as soon as they were under pressure, you could see it on their face. So I would
Yeah.
study them first of all. My players would then say to me, "Well, I'm worried about playing them. They've got a great reputation." And I say, "Well, look, you're
Hmm.
not playing the reputation." And I would draw the four boxes. And what I would say to them is this: top left hand corner is percentage of first serves in, top right hand corner is percentages of serve returned, bottom left hand corner is number of unforced errors, bottom right hand corner is the result. Now, if you focus on the first three, the result is an outcome.
Yeah.
And in business, it's the same. Top right hand corner is your clients.
Hmm.
Top left hand corner is your clients. Top right hand corner is your people. Bottom left hand corner is your process, and the bottom right hand corner is financial. And when you talk to people about business, they all focus on the financial, just like my tennis players all focused on the result. And I'm saying, forget the result. If you get those other three boxes right, the result will take
You're gonna
care
be
of
fine.
itself.
Was this something, so obviously you used it as a business model there. Is this something you've used in business? Is this
Oh,
something
all the
you've
time,
used
all
regularly?
all the all the
Yeah.
time. But when I set up my own business in when I was 36, I set up two businesses. I
Okay.
set up a financial services business, which I sold a couple of years ago, and also set up a management consultancy business. And my ex-managing director used to give me a lot of hassle for the kind of things that I did, which later became the management consultancy business. And what I did was
Okay.
I took some of the models that I had seen during my business career and talk to other people about it. It was
Hmm.
massively successful. I mean, you could restructure a business, you could focus a sales force, you could focus a business just looking at those four boxes as an example. I've got a whole bag of those things that can create
Absolutely.
focus.
No, that's interesting. It's interesting how something like that in tennis can be so successful and effective in business as well. Obviously, Derek, we've touched on your early life and your school. You never attended university or any sort of college. You're extremely self-made and been extremely successful. I suppose we've touched on it throughout our conversation so far, but what has it been like? What has it been like having that success, self-made? How did you learn? Who did you learn from? And how have you made it successful for so long?
Well, that's let me try and pick off those
Yeah,
questions,
sorry. There's a
Jack.
few in there, I
So,
suppose.
so I started off when I got the job that sort of started off my career. I was very fortunate that it was a top class company. It was a very successful company, and there were successful people there that I could emulate and copy and improve on. I
Yeah.
ended up on the board of that company 14 years later, and I learned a lot during that. I suppose the drive was the chip in my shoulder of not going to university and the fact that I wanted to prove myself to people that actually just because I didn't have a degree, and by the way, I'd love to have a degree, but I don't. But just
Yeah.
because I didn't have one didn't mean I couldn't be successful. So that was the sort of drive. But then what happened was that I realized the value of what a trusted financial advisor can do for their clients. You could see
Yeah.
the impact on them and the impact on their family. And when you actually get to that stage that you see that, then you really appreciate the value that you're bringing to the clients. And
Absolutely.
you know, and that's it really. There's nothing. I've always pushed myself, as you know, in sport, but I've also pushed
Yeah.
myself in business. And I didn't compare myself to other people, and I don't. And also, believe it or not, I actually don't consider myself that successful. I think I'm reasonably
Well,
successful.
okay.
My feet are on the ground. You know, I lead a relatively quiet life.
Mhm.
I you know, I think empty vessels make most noise. And you know, and one of my things, you know, be careful who you mix with because there'll be people that will tell you all these wonderful stories about how good they are, this, that, and the next thing. Well,
Yeah.
if they're that good, why are they not sitting in an island in the Caribbean sipping champagne, you know, rather than being at some event
Absolutely.
where they're trying to make some contacts?
Was that a hard lesson you had to learn about trusting people around you? Was there ever a time where that backfired for you personally?
Yeah, it's probably backfired a couple of times.
Hmm.
And once it happens to you once, you're aware of it. Sometimes it happens to you again.
Yeah.
The difficulty I think we have is, and women are better at this than men, generally speaking, and that's
Okay.
trusting your instinct and trusting your
Yeah.
gut.
Hmm.
And I have to say, it's very difficult if your gut is saying you should walk away from this, but
Hmm.
because you're drawn in by it and you think, no, 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 this is going to work, this is going to work. And usually your gut is right. And that would be one of my other, you know, top tips for people is, you know, go with your gut. You'll be
Absolutely.
more right than you will be wrong.
It's good advice, absolutely, Derek. One thing as well, so this podcast based obviously about career growth, finding out about careers. The other side of this is all about networking. How can you get your foot in the door and how can you make those connections? What is networking been in your life as a starting out your career? Did you know a lot about networking? It's something you've always been good at, or what's networking been like for you?
It's an interesting one. I don't network.
Okay. Okay. Right.
I think, I mean, for instance, there's an organization or there used to be an organization, I don't know if it's still there. There
Mhm.
was an organization in Scotland that was all about networking. And actually, what it was it was all about successful entrepreneurs just having their ego massaged by people who want to be connected with them. Okay.
Brilliant.
Um, it's a bit like asking for a referral in business. You
Hmm.
know, a lot of people say, oh, you should ask for referrals from all your clients. I don't ask for referrals from my clients, okay? But
Hmm.
let me explain. We'll do the referral one first and then go back to networks. What I
Okay.
used to do with my clients is, first of all, try and do an unbelievable job, try and go the extra mile, try and stand out, try and satisfy what they were looking for. The client is first and foremost. Everybody says it, not everybody delivers it. But believe
Yeah.
me, if you deliver it, you will have a successful business. That was the core of when I set up the business. I wanted to compete with big companies who had
Hmm.
impersonal services for which they overcharged. And I've been very old fashioned in the way that I've dealt with things. Sure, I've got technology everywhere, but we
Yeah.
face it with a client. We face it. I'm the face, or one of my advisors is the
Yeah.
face.
Yeah.
So, what I would say to a client at the end of a job would be, great, I'm glad we managed to get everything sorted out. And I would say, here's a couple of business cards. If you know, if anybody, any of your friends need any help, then let me
Yeah.
know. Because believe it or not, when clients phone up, what they say is, I wonder if you would do me a favor. I have a
Hmm.
friend who, what they don't realize is they're doing me a favor. And
Yeah.
it's the most
Of course.
profitable business, a referral. So what I would say is, there's a couple of cards, any of your friends need any help, and I would leave it as low key as that. Now the question is,
Hmm.
why two cards? Well, the reason for 2 cards is that if you go to a restaurant that you like and you've got their card in your pocket and somebody's looking for a good restaurant, you're reticent to give that card away. I mean, this is old school. I mean, you have it on your phone nowadays. But the fact of the matter is, if you give them 2 cards, they'll take the second one out and pass it over. So that's referrals. Networking, the way I subtly networked was I demonstrated my expertise to a professional network of accountants and lawyers, and I got a reputation. So people came to me rather than me going to them. Now, if you try and I'm not saying you shouldn't try and network, but if you push, you won't get there. Just expose yourself to the risk of doing business. Now, that was a tip I got when I was 21 from my boss. Derek, you've got to expose yourself to the risk of doing business. Sitting in your office ain't going to do it. Go out and meet people, but it needs to be subtle.
It needs to be subtle.
It needs to be subtle. And could I also, sorry, Jack, could I also say that one of my biggest successes so all our business came from accountants and lawyers, and that all came from a mistake, which we could touch on in a minute. But all my business came from accountants and lawyers, and the quality of the business that they introduced was fantastic. But before they introduced anything to me, I helped them.
So from what your advice is, it's better to have a smaller network that knows your reputation, respects you, knows your work, than forcing a large network that might barely know you.
Well, look at LinkedIn, for instance. I mean, LinkedIn, an awful lot of what's on LinkedIn is nonsense. It's not you can't verify the statements that people are making, and there are a lot of lies in there. And there's a huge amount of it. Now, LinkedIn does have a value, but just be careful. It's not what it seems to be. So if you can start off with a small network and gain a reputation with that network, you won't have to try very hard for that to expand.
Interesting. No, that's an aspect we haven't actually heard about networking yet. I think for a lot of young people in college, especially over here in the States just now as well, networking's forced on you to speak to as many people as you can, get your foot in as many doors as possible. And there's something I've asked our other guests, Derek, truthfully, they've come from universities, they have degrees. So I'm interested to ask you this as someone that didn't. Do you think either universities, colleges, or just the older generations themselves should be telling younger people these life lessons earlier? How to network effectively and why it's got value, as opposed to just kind of forcing you out and doing your own thing, I guess?
Well, later on we'll come on to the book that I'm writing, but the point is I think there's a lot of stuff not taught at university that should be taught at university. What they tend to teach at university, I know because I've employed the graduates. Now, when they walk in the door, they have a certificate that says they have a degree, which is fabulous, okay, because that shows a commitment and it shows hard work. But 9 times out of 10, it doesn't relate to the job that they're just about to do. So they need to start their learning all over again. Coming back to karate, when I got my black belt, and I was very proud of it, my sensei, my instructor, said to me, "Congratulations, there, your black belt. Now go back to white and learn it all over again." And I had to resit every single grade, whether it be red, yellow, orange, green, and I had to get great marks to get back to do my second dan 2 years later. And when I got that, I was sent back to the beginning as well. So it's this thing about learning. Unfortunately, I think we are learning historic stuff, and the world has changed. I mean, your generation with technology, AI, and what that's going to mean. But at the end of the day, you're talking to, well, we're hopefully talking to human beings, and human beings have emotions. And, it's important that you can interact with human beings properly. So I think that networking or how to build a business is something that should be taught.
Definitely. I think it's interesting you say that, because I mean, I'm a student, obviously. I know a lot of students that I'm friends with would say the same, that perhaps what we're being taught at uni isn't actually going to develop and prepare us for our first entry-level position. What would you say there's anything that university students like me or other people listening can do while they're studying and getting that degree to prepare for an entry level of their job after college?
What they should do is go and work for a company while they are at university. And that means they'll get experience in the workplace. It means an employer will see you and might tell you want to do this differently, or they might say to you, "Do you know what? You're showing all the right things. Why don't you come and talk to us at the end, so we don't have to recruit you through an agency and pay a big fee. So first of all, I think you should go and work in a number of different companies. What you're doing, I think, is a fabulous idea, because you're going to stand out from the crowd because of what you're doing. You're creating a brand. You're creating something of value that people can learn from. Now that sets you miles ahead of lots of people. So these are the kind of things that you should be doing. But again, it's not something that they're going to say to you at university. I don't know, but I wouldn't
No,
think.
you're right. Yeah, you're definitely right. No, that's great, Eric. I don't, Derek, sorry, I don't want us to get too far from the accounting mistake that started your career. So I'd like to go back to that. I'd like you to fill us in on that before we get tangled up in talking about something else.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to gut instinct. I was approached, so the company that I loved and had shaped me didn't have a management position available, and I was approached by an agent to go and work for another company. I would have the title of manager. They would double my salary. They would give me a guaranteed bonus. It all looked great, but my gut's screaming out at me, this isn't going to work, because it never does with these types of people. So I took the job. I was in the door 2 days when I did the financials and realized this wasn't going to work. I had this massive target, which they promised that they were going to feed me referrals. It was a stockbroking firm, and they were going to feed me referrals that I could go and do business with. They didn't. So I had to find a way of doing business to hit the target. So what I did was I started talking to accountants and lawyers. I didn't talk to them about what I did. I talked to them about what they did. I talked to them about what their 6 biggest challenges were. And then I explained to them, based on some experience I had had, some training I had, how we would handle that type of problem. And their ears pricked up. What was I doing telling them this? And then they tried it and it worked. So we kept the conversations going. And then they said, oh, by the way, we'd like to introduce a client to you. And that's where it started. That one lesson got me the business that I sold 2 years ago.
It's crazy, that, isn't it, really? Such a
And
long
you know
time
what?
as
It
well.
was the one area that everybody said, we want business from accountants and lawyers. How do we do it? And they all had the same way of doing it. And it was not the way I was doing it. I was going into them and saying, tell me about your 6 biggest issues, or recruitment, or legislation, or attracting new business. And I would do a little workshop for them on it. And they'd be like, who is this guy?
So this little workshop, was that you proving to them that you had the knowledge, you had the not technology, but you had the know-how to actually do this for them? Is that what that process was?
That proved to them that I was a businessman, rather than somebody that was coming to them with a begging bowl looking for referrals. So we had mutual respect, and from the things that I did with them, their business benefited.
I bet.
So that just led to them saying, we trust this guy, so we'll introduce some clients.
A win-win for all involved. Obviously, I don't want to spend the whole time talking about referrals, but you are the first to bring it up, so I'd like to ask again, would you say, have referrals really been the backbone for the success you've had in your career? The people that's just good name?
So the accountants and lawyers were the backbone, and that followed on from referrals. So what would happen would be, you would build a client base. So you've got your accountants and lawyers as your introducers. They introduce the clients, and then what would happen would be the clients would make referrals.
So the whole process all kind of leads back to you in the end, doesn't it?
Yeah, but only if you're good, only if you're trustworthy. And you one of the last lesson on this, you had to communicate with them at all times. And what I mean by that was, I always refer to them as their clients. If one of their clients phoned me with a problem, I would solve the problem. But before I did that, I would phone the accountant or the lawyer and say, do you realize one of your clients has got a problem? And if you keep that communication going, then they're always going to trust you. If they find that out later on from somebody else, then you've got an issue.
I can see, yeah. So it's really, you've basically built this career on a good reputation, mutual trust with companies that you've proved yourself to, and that leading to referrals, which has caused obviously a huge win for you in your career since then.
The most profitable source of business you could get.
Brilliant, amazing. Now, obviously, I'd love to talk about your book. Now, it doesn't surprise me. I've heard some of your stories, so it doesn't surprise me at all that you're writing a book. I'm very excited to hear more about it and hopefully read it at some point. The title is What's Your Number? And I'll leave that with you. Tell us everything about it. I want to know all the details.
So what's your number, Jack? That's the first question I ask new clients.
Okay.
And most of them look at me with a blank expression in their face. Now, I only ask questions to which I know the answer. Okay, that's another top tip. So what's your number? And they have a blank expression. And I say to them, look, what it means is, how much would it take for you to retire, give it up, sit back, and enjoy yourself. And
Yeah.
most people don't know.
Mm-hmm.
In addition to that, most people have got their head buried in the sand, okay? Because they know they're in trouble. So there's a survey that comes out in the UK every year, and it just came out about 4 months ago. 38% of people in the UK will not meet the minimum standard of living at retirement.
Wow.
It's mind blowing. Now, as a
Really,
result of that, people don't want to have the conversation.
Yeah.
The other problem is, and it will be the same in the States, people are trying to survive today. They can't think about 10, 15, 20 years down the road.
100%.
But what the book is, I've done research. I've got tons of books behind me here. I've done research, and there has never been a book written in simple terms. Now, I thought, that's great. That's what I'll do. I'll write a book in simple financial terms. Well, actually, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
It's not easy at all. And I can assure you, I'm trying really hard to do it. But it's so important. So I speak to people about this all the time. And what I say to them is, let's say, for instance, your generation, Jack. Now, the problem is the people in their 40s and 50s, because they don't have so long to go to get to the retirement part.
Of course.
But if we look at people in your situation, if I was to sit down with you and go through all the numbers, I'm eventually going to come back to you and say, right, okay, the growth that you require and what you save or what your assets are to hit your target, to have the retirement that you want, is 4% a year. Okay, 4% a year.
Yeah.
But then I say, but it's not as simple as that. Because then you've got the fund manager's charge. Let's just say that's 1%. It could be 0.1%, doesn't matter. Then you've got your financial advisor's charge, could be 0.75. Then you've got the administrative IT platform, could be 0.15. It could be 2%. So your 4% is now 6%.
Yeah.
Okay, but then we go further and say, right, okay, but that's 6%, of course, you might have to pay tax on that. So certain investment products you don't pay tax on. So 6%, 6%. But if you pay tax on an investment product, that 6% might now be 7% or 8%.
Yeah.
And it starts to get a bit scary. And the point that we're making is, if it is 6 or 7 or 8%, what are you doing sitting investing in cash? What are you doing sitting and being cautious at your age, when what you should be doing, if you're looking long term, is investing so that you can get 7, 6, 8% or whatever the case might be. But until you know your number, you're completely in the dark.
It sounds to me that the conversation that follows this question, what's your number, for a lot of people could be quite a scary 5 or 10 minutes. Obviously, you talk
a lot
about
longer.
A lot longer. I bet. I was hoping you were good at your job, so I was saying you might be a little bit quicker. That was all. But obviously, you're talking 4% in the first place. I mean, this could intimidate people. Like you said, you're then throwing on fees that can add on another 2-3%. I know your book and the way you work, you're trying to make this sound as simple and as easy as possible, but how hard can that be face-to-face with the client, as well as obviously writing that in your book?
Well, it's much easier face-to-face with the client, so I'm probably going to do something online to back the book up. I think that's probably a smart way of doing it, and then you can sort of run classes to try and explain some of these things. I mean, for instance, inflation is massive and people don't understand it. They've had a dose of it recently, but they haven't had it for a long time. So I was teaching a primary school class years ago about this, and I said to them, how much is a Mars bar? You know, a chocolate confectionery bar in the UK. And they said, oh, it's £1. And I was like, right, in my day, it was 5p. And they were like, oh, that was cheap. How was it 5p? And I said, well, that's the effect of inflation. Now, we're not even going with shrinkflation, because the Mars bar at £1 is smaller than the one was at 5p, but leaving that aside. And then I said to them, if you average the rate of inflation from when it was 5p to £1 over that number of years, when you get to my age, the price of that Mars bar will be £15.
Yeah. Something crazy like that, yeah.
It's crazy, but the thing is, people have to understand about inflation and how it erodes the purchasing power. So we have to understand this, get a grip of it, but it needs to be explained in the simplest of terms. So that's what the book's about. And of course, what's your number relates directly back to doing an ultramarathon.
Of course. Wow.
Because you have heart rate, you've got all these, you've got a dashboard of numbers.
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing to me, Derek, how practically your whole life you've managed to run with sport and business so intertwined. It really is. I think sometimes it's one or the other with a sprinkling of each, but I think that your career and the way to read about it and hear about it in this conversation, it really has been like they can't live without each other in your life.
Yeah. Well,
So
the other thing, remember we talked about the 4 boxes,
yeah,
right? Well, the 4 boxes it's called the it's called the balanced scorecard. Now,
okay,
anybody at university goes through the balanced scorecard, and believe me, it's as boring as ditch water, right? It is so boring. But where the original balanced scorecard came from, it was based on being in an aircraft, and the 2 pilots conk out, and they run up to you in the front seat, Jack, and say, Jack, you come and fly this 747 and land it for us. And you go, I can't fly a plane. They say, no, don't worry about that. And they put you in the pilot seat and they put the cans on and they say, just follow the instructions. And the air traffic control come on and they say to you, Jack, can you see all the dials in this 747? You see all these dials? There's only 4 that matter. Your altitude, your speed, your fuel, and whether your wings are doing this or that. Can you see the 4 dials? Ignore everything else. We will talk you through the 4 dials and you will land the plane. That is life. That is an ultramarathon. That is running a business. What are those 4 dials? That is what's your number. It creates focus and simplicity.
I think that's something that's easily lost, especially in my generation, because I think when we go into entry-level positions where we're stressed about getting an internship for our careers, you go in and you worry about absolutely everything. How can I do this, 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 this? How can I help him, her, him, her, him, her? What you said there, especially the use of the plane, is business life, is it really about the 4 or 5 important things as opposed to the bigger picture? And if you focus on these smaller things, your bigger picture will follow. Is that the message you're trying to get across?
Yeah, well, they're not small; they're key. So I mean, they're either key, but they're either key result areas or key performance indicators if you want to use jargon. But they're the 4 thing. But the problem in business, of course, is you've got egos, and you've got everybody trying to climb up the greasy pole. It's the quiet ones working in the background who are actually delivering the results. And of course, you're also a golfer. And if you think about those 4 boxes, I'm not going to tell you what should go in them because you know golf better than me. But actually, as a golfer, think about those 4 boxes. And everybody worries about the result, the scorecard in the bottom right-hand corner. Well, it's the other 3 boxes that deliver the result.
Take care of it.
And also what it does is it creates a focus, which means you're silencing there's the chimp paradox, not a book I particularly like, but a theory which I absolutely agree with. In golf, the book is called The Inner Game of Golf. If you haven't read it, read it. It's the best golf book out there because it's all about the mind. It's not about technique. But what's your number is based on all of these things. But I honestly will simplify things almost. I will probably get some criticism from people in finance saying it wasn't in-depth enough. Well, the problem is the other ones are all too in-depth.
Too in-depth. So what's life been like as Derek Stewart, the author? What's the timeline been for the book? How are you enjoying writing it? What are you learning about yourself, and what are you learning about writing as you take on this adventure as an author? Sorry.
Yeah, it's new, which is exciting. I think you always need new projects in your life. I'm 63 now, so I want to make sure I've got things that are, there's a guitar sitting there in the corner, and I'll get around to that as well. But you need things that will stimulate your brain. I'm passionate about what's your number because it will help so many people, and that's what drives me. As for writing it, I've got a laptop full of stuff that I've been building for 2 years. I was in Portugal, and if you remember, there was a power cut in Portugal, France, and Spain. So I had to write with pen and paper. I started dictating to my iPad until it stopped allowing me to dictate. I haven't worked that out because I'm a dinosaur, but I'll get there. I even used AI. Now, that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
I
would love to talk about AI. So tell me about your experience with that.
So I put a chapter. I have no known experience of AI because obviously I probably use AI quite a lot without knowing it. Yeah. Having said that, I'm advising an AI company, but that's another matter. Yeah. So not on the technology. So I put a chapter into AI, and 5 seconds later had a brand new chapter completely differently written. It then asked me if I wanted to change the style, which I did, and it changed it there and then. And whilst I thought it was fascinating, I won't be using it.
Interesting. Okay.
I just have a gut feeling that, and of course at university lecturers will see it all the time. I have a gut feeling you can tell something that's written AI, and I want people when they write it who know me to say that's Derek Stewart. You know, I have a tone. You know, I will get professional help with the writing of it, but it won't be with AI.
It'll be human written, not obviously computer and things like that. That's interesting. So using AI, well, obviously not using AI for your book, but encountering AI with your book and also helping this AI company, what are you learning about the things that it can do both for yourself, personally, for businesses? What is AI going to continue to do for us, do you think?
Well, AI, let me give you an example. The company I used to work for, the company that bought us, have a 38-page questionnaire. So if I sit in front of you as a client for the first time, I've got 38 pages to fill out. Now, you know, I could, you know, I wouldn't get many clients if I did that, you know.
No, I don't think so.
So one of the things I was helping the AI company with was, can we get this whereby I could put my mobile phone in front of you and say, Jack, we're just going to have a conversation. And at the end of the conversation, AI fills out the form, AI tells me what's missing. Wow. I don't have to go back to the office and get somebody to then put it on the system. It's already on the system.
We're already.
So I think there's swathes of improvements that can be made and efficiencies that can be made, but where the real value for and that might reduce costs to clients.
Yep.
It may give greater profit to companies, but it certainly will introduce cost to clients if the company passes it on. So I think there's great things to be had there. Personally, from a training perspective, AI is on my watch. You know, AI is on my phone. It's telling me this, that, and the next thing when I'm running along or when I'm in the gym. So that's quite useful. But at the same time, they also say you should run naked. Now, let me just clarify what that means.
Okay.
Don't try this at home. What it means is it means running with no technology, because you have to be able to feel your heart rate and you have to be able to tell your heart rate without technology. And that's the only worry I have about AI, is it actually is dumbing down a lot of things that we're doing, and we lose the ability to do certain things.
Do you think there's definitely a chance that people become dependent on AI in the future?
Oh, without a doubt.
Without doubt?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, just that power cut in Portugal, people were queuing up at ATMs, people were panic buying in the supermarket, and you couldn't get online. And everybody was panicking because they you know, we're so used to everything being instant.
Yeah, that's interesting. AI, I think, could do. I don't think there's a ceiling for AI just now, is what I'm trying to say. I think AI has got absolutely every capability with the money that's getting pumped into it still. It's really interesting to see where this is going. Before we move on completely, Derek, what is the timeline for your book being released? How far away are we?
Yeah, so it will be released by Christmas. The only thing that will hold it up is I'm going to try and get a publishing deal. That's the only thing that will hold it up. If I don't, I'll self-publish. I'm not bothered. I don't think it will be in the top 100 bestsellers in the world. I don't care about that. I want it to reach an audience and make a difference. That's my legacy.
Absolutely, and rightly so, I think, Derek. Obviously, like I said, I've been lucky enough to speak with you in length before, and I've heard some of your stories. So, folks, before Christmas this year, What's Your Number by Derek Stewart. I would definitely recommend it highly.
Thank you, Jack.
I think it'll be a lovely Christmas present, a signed copy, perhaps.
Of course.
So I'll definitely be reading it. I'd urge everyone to as well. The other things we noted, Derek, that we want to talk about, I'd like to get into some of them: mentoring a chief executive, your high performance team building. And then obviously, I would love to touch on your skydiving adventures you've been taking.
Okay. So we'll do it in that order. Just make sure.
Absolutely.
So as far as mentoring is concerned, again, it's a very personal thing. And I'm not looking for people to mentor. What tends to happen is people come to me based on reputation, etc., etc. So my job with this chief executive is to be the extra pair of ears. And I can go into situations where they are emotional and they're obviously connected to the board and the business that they're in, and they've got a lot invested in it. But I can sit back from it, and I can look at it. And the good thing is I can see everybody's point of view. And because I'm not emotionally invested in it, it's much, much easier for me. And the other thing is I've been there, seen it and done it. It doesn't mean it's the same, but it does mean that I do understand that the pressures that they're under if they've got shareholders and returning value to shareholders, etc. I take a great deal of pleasure in it. Just trying to help somebody and help them achieve what it is they want to achieve. And I've done it over the years. But as I say, I don't want to stop dead. One of the things about retirement isn't stopping dead. Retirement is, winding down, but doing things that you love without. I used to get 150 emails a day. Doesn't happen anymore.
Gosh. I bet that's a nice thing to wake up to. Less emails.
Wonderful.
Obviously, that relationship sounds like it's something you can learn from. Those that you're mentoring have obviously got a great mentor themselves. Your high performance team building, I'm interested to see, is this something you've started in retirement, something you're passionate about, or is it something you've been doing your whole career?
Something I've done before. So when I set up my own business, I set up two businesses, and one of them was a management consultancy business. And we ended up doing a lot of behavioral profiling because we were trying to get better results for the companies that were employing us. So no better place to start than the people. And because of my coaching background and because of my competitive background and the background in running a company, I learned about behavioral profiling. And, for instance, the example I always use is Lionel Messi is a phenomenal player. I love Lionel Messi. But if you had 11 of them in the pitch, you wouldn't win.
Yeah, you're right.
So from a personality point of view, you need different personalities in a team, and you need to understand where people will perform better than others. And I understand that. So I might be out in the Gulf states this summer doing some work with people out there on high performance team building. But I make quite clear to them that if they're going to take this on board, this is not like a package off the shelf. This is me stamped all over it with everything that I've done. And it is not for the faint-hearted. Because we will strip everybody back to the bare bones and then build them all back up from there to be a high performance team.
That's impressive. I love stuff. It sounds like it. I have to say, so I can see you doing it, honestly, Derek. I can see you being good at it. So it's funny you say it like that. What difficulties have you encountered with this? Has there been managers that have been reluctant to try it? Has there been
let me share one
teams?
Let me share one. Yeah. I've got one story of a PLC, a UK PLC, and they were a bank, and I was asked to work with their executive in team performance. Okay. So I have got exercises designed by behavioral psychologists that I use. And for this particular exercise, we needed 12 individuals in a room, and they were all tied to each other and they had a task to do. But we only had 10, and we were in this hotel. So I said to the executives, we're too short. I said, I'm going to go and ask the hotel manager if he could spare me 2 members of staff. So these 2 members of staff came through. They were waiting staff. They served drinks. And they came in, and I said to the 10 executives, they're all high-powered men and women, mainly men. And I said, right, we've got these 2. You need to treat them like 2 new members of your team now. You've got to work with them. They've got to work with you. They've just joined today. They know nothing, but they're going to go through the same thing as you. There's a couple of positions in this game are more important than others, so I didn't put them in the positions. But the 10 executives, one of them was deciding who went where. He was being really sneaky. He had worked out where the important positions were, and he put people in them, not himself. So that if it went wrong, it's nothing to do with him. But if it went well, he was the one that put them in the position. This is the kind of games they play. 15 minutes into this exercise, and this waitress piped up. And as we're going to be on YouTube or whatever, I'm not going to use her precise words. But what she basically said was, who put this clown in that position? He has no idea what he's doing. Now, this was a senior executive in a UK PLC bank, and he was mortified. She was 100% correct. 100% correct. He was useless, right? And then later, and they then turned around to me and said, this is a setup. And I said, I've never met this woman in my life before. This isn't a setup. I said, what you've got to do is you've got an unhappy member of your team. You've got to get her back on side. Simple. Another 10 minutes passes. I've had enough of this. This guy is so hopeless. And he was. So anyway, we finished the game. We thanked the two. Out they go. And that evening, I'm in the bar, and the manager comes over and says to me, "Oh, how were the two employees?" And I said, "That's not what you're asking." I said, "What you're asking is, how's Jane?" And he went, "Well, yes." I said, "You put her in here because she's difficult, isn't she?" He went, "She's a nightmare." I said, "Do you know what? She saw through all the nonsense and called it out for what it was." I said, "You got a star in the making there. She just needs the rough edges smoothed over and she'll be brilliant."
Brilliant.
So
Absolutely brilliant, man.
that's one of the funniest experiences I've ever had in that game.
It's amazing. So are these exercises all your high performance team building? Do you do all this in person yourself, or are you
I do.
sometimes working remotely? It's all in person from you. Okay.
It's all in person. It's hands on.
Okay, brilliant. No, that's great. That's something, like I said, I can see you being the motivator and being the team leader, so that doesn't surprise me. You've enjoyed that role. Before we get on to our quick fire segment, I have to find out about your skydiving. It's something that absolutely terrifies me, but you seem to have loved it for the last wee while. So let me know how you got started into it, some of your best trips out, and why you love it.
Well, so the skydiving is something that I've wanted to do all my life. I used to fly hang gliders and I used to fly paragliders, but there's a difference that you don't come to an edge. And of course, the problem I had with skydiving was you very much come to an edge. You're sitting on the edge with the instructor strapped onto you behind. So when I retired, I took 9 weeks off, and my partner and I went over to New Zealand and Australia. And I was driving past and I saw this skydiving school, and I thought, right, that's it. I've mucked around. I've been too fearful. You only live once. And the statistics on skydiving are very, 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 very safe. So I thought, no, let's just do it. So I went along, and we did the first jump was from 9,000 feet, and it was just absolutely, utterly amazing.
Brilliant.
About a week or two later, I came across another place and did one from 12,000 feet. Wow. And I thought to myself, I wonder if at 63 you can take this up. And the answer is you can. So I want to do a solo skydive where I go out the plane without an instructor.
By yourself.
So I'm currently looking at a course in Spain, which you can learn to do it in a week. Wow. So I want to be solo skydiving by the end of this summer.
Amazing, Derek. It really is amazing. There's just no stopping you, really, is there?
No, but the thing is, there isn't, because when you stop, you're dead. I mean, if you're not developing, if you're not growing, you're rotten. And at my age, you have to keep pushing. The gym 3 times a week. My trainer's 21 stone Polish, puts up with no nonsense, and that's exactly what you need, because your muscles start to waste away. So we all know the end of this movie. Nobody gets out alive, so you might as well enjoy it.
No, absolutely. And talk about keeping in shape, Derek. I think you're definitely fitter than 99.99% of us. So you're doing a good job.
Thanks, Jack.
To be conscious of time, I'm going to move on. I've got 10 quick fire questions for you.
And I've got one last message, which I'll give at the end, but go for it.
Yes, that was the plan. I was going to circle right back to that as well. Perfect. So we'll get started. What was your first ever job, even as a young lad?
Washing car. Oh no, delivering milk at the age of 12.
Delivering milk. Okay.
As a milk boy.
Good stuff. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
Oh, definitely an early bird. My training in the summer starts at 5 a.m.
Good Lord. Wow, that's I'd rather you than me.
Best part of the day.
What's 3 words to describe your mindset?
Positive, determined, focused.
Brilliant. What would you say is Scotland's best kept secret? There you go.
Scotland's best. Well, I tell you what, I think it's best kept secret, and you might be able to relate to this. It's the small golf courses, not the big ones.
And we've spoken about that before, about the amount as well. Absolutely.
It's Boat of Garton up near Aviemore. Yep. It's these absolute gems, and everybody comes over and they play the big courses. Well, that's fine, but leave yourself some time for the small ones, because they're better and a lot less money.
More easily accessible, a lot less money. I completely agree, Derek. Who is someone you admire, either professionally or in your personal life?
Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela. That's a good one. That's a very good answer. That's probably the highest caliber of answer we've had so far. That's a good
I think
one.
it's difficult to beat.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you. What is your dream vacation destination?
If I can guarantee the weather, Scotland.
Okay.
We go running in the mountains all the time. And if you get the weather, I mean, we've got a camper van. If you get the weather, Scotland. I've just been to New Zealand, fantastic, absolutely amazing. Australia, etc., etc. I've been America, loads of places, etc., etc. But if you could guarantee the weather, and even if you can't guarantee it, Scotland.
No, I can see why you'd say that, Derek. I agree. If you could choose dinner with one athlete or famous person, who would you sit down for dinner with? And you can't say Nelson Mandela.
Bjorn Borg.
John Borg. Okay.
Bjorn Borg.
That's a new one as well. Okay.
Just have a look at him in his later years now. He's amazing.
Okay. What is your, well, not current or I suppose throughout your life, what's been your song to get in the zone? Whether it's running, doing your work in the gym, what's your song to get going?
Oh, I've got so many songs. I've got
Impossible.
I tell you one song, and I'm more a soul man, right? But I tell you one song that gets played. Well, I tell you, in the Marathon des Sables, on the start line every day, they give you a safety briefing that lasts 40 minutes in the heat. And as you go across the start line, it's Highway to Hell is what they play.
Wow. Wow, that sounds pretty much like it, I'd have to say. Right, final question before we get on to your last advice. What is one place that you'd love to solo skydive once you're qualified?
Oh, one place I'd love to solo skydive. Grand Canyon.
Grand Canyon. Wow.
I don't even know if it's possible, but I have never thought of that question, Jack. Good question. Grand Canyon, get it on the list.
That'd be amazing if you could. Well, Derek, I'm going to call on all your wisdom and all your advice. What is your one final note for us and our listeners?
I'm going to do two. I'm going to cheat. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
Number one,
Sorry.
Number one, it's all about mindset, okay? It's all about mindset. All these big, long races, 60, 70% of it's mind over your body, okay? But the main message, other than mindset, I was going to leave with is reputation is hard to gain and easy to lose.
There you go. Simple as that. Eh? That's brilliant, Derek. Thank you so much for coming on. I feel like we could have sat and spoke for hours. I really appreciate it. You've always got a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge that you've parted us with.
Pleasure, Jack. I'm going to be watching your podcast with interest, and I think you're on a great trajectory. Just keep it going.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm sure we'll have you back on one day. Folks, thank you. This episode will go live. I believe it's Sunday. And then we've got episodes Wednesday, Sunday. So keep your eyes peeled on all the socials for that. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys. Well, that's all for today, folks. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and were also able to gain some valuable insight into a potential career. Please head over to Instagram and TikTok and follow us. That's the Brodie Blueprint. And also don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube as well. If you guys have any guests that you want to see on the podcast or any industries that you want to see guests appear from, please let us know. Until next time, guys. See you later.